welcome. Got some bikes going by here quick. Okay, welcome. Let's begin with the pledge. Color guard, Lieutenant. Left face. Uncover for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Cover. Right face. Stand at ease. On behalf of Post 43, I welcome you here today as we remember those who serve on the front line of battle across the globe. We have troops embedded in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, parts of Africa, and we remember all of our armed forces who are in harm's way. On this day, the United States military and our allies continue to face a very determined enemy. That enemy is seeking no truce, they desire no peace, and they are contributing nothing towards the greater good of human life. Since September 11th of 2001, total United States military casualty losses have now reached 7,002. Of those killed in action in Iraq, 4,572. Killed in action in Afghanistan, 2,430. As of this date, July 21st of 2019, total coalition force losses, that's all of our allies, the force losses now stand at 8,467. That's KIA. Many more thousands are wounded. I would ask that you please remember all of our fallen and those who have been wounded in action. Please pray for their families and pray for the safe return of our men and women who serve on the front line of battle. Please bear with me now as I read through the list of names of all U.S. service members killed in action over the course of the previous 30 days. We shall remember. All veterans, color guard, Lieutenant. As noted on your handout. July 18th, Sergeant William Edward Freese, United States Army, 30 years of age, from Rockport, West Virginia. On July 13th, Sergeant Major James G. Sartor, United States Army, 40 years old, from Teague, Texas. June 30th, Sergeant First Class Elliot J. Robbins, United States Army, 31 years of age, from Ogden, Utah. And 2 casualties on June 25th, both United States Army. First, Master Sergeant Michael B. Riley, 32 years of age, from Heilbronn, Germany. And also Sergeant James G. Johnston, 24 years of age, from Trumansburg, New York. 5 American service members have been killed in action over the course of the previous 30 days. For all those who have sacrificed their lives, on this day and all days, we shall remember them as they would say unto us, whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope, or for nothing, we cannot say. It is all of you who must say this. We leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning, lest we forget. This day shall serve as a reminder for all those that are serving the United States Armed Forces in harm's way, and also as a reminder for the tremendous sacrifice of their families here on the home front. For the past 30 days, Old Glory, this beautiful flag, has proudly flown and stood watch over this post in honor of all United States military personnel, all those listed as missing, killed, and wounded in action, as well as for all veterans. And at this time, American Legion Post 43 Color Guard is very proud to pay tribute to this grand old flag. Specifically, this flag has flown in honor of United States Navy Senior Chief Cryptologic Technician Shannon M. Kent of Pine Plains, New York. Senior Chief Kent was killed in action in Syria back on January 16th of this year. Color guard, left face. Order of the day, retire colors. Preset, arms. with this flag. American Legion Post 43 of Faribault, Minnesota. Frontline honor ceremony on today's date, July 21st of 2019. For the period of June 16th, 2019 through July 21st, 2019, these colors of the United States of America have proudly flown and stood watch over Post 43 American Legion, Faribault, Minnesota, in honor of Senior Chief Cryptologic Technician Shannon M. Kent. Thank you, Shannon, for your dedicated service to our beloved country. This flag will be sent to Maryland, to my Navy brother, Rob Lockery, who is a close friend of Shannon's. So he will be receiving this in the near term, along with our debt of gratitude. Order, arms. On this day and all days, American Legion Post 43 is extremely honored to fly the colors of the United States of America on behalf of all military personnel who are currently serving in the United States and Coalition Armed Forces, as well as for all veterans. And for the next 30 days, Post 43 is very privileged and honored to fly the flag in the name of United States Army Ranger Joshua Reed Haas of New London, Wisconsin. Flag detail, prepare to receive new colors. Hold fast. Joshua Reed Haas, 42 years of age, passed away peacefully in his home on April 4th of 2019. He had fought a courageous battle with pancreatic cancer and was surrounded by his loving family and friends at the time of his passing. Born in New London, Wisconsin on March 4th, 1977, he was the eldest son of James and Janice Rivers Haas. Josh was a 1995 graduate of Little Wolf High School in Manawa, Wisconsin. After high school, Josh went on to become a Badger at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, graduating with a BA in Communications and Psychology in 2000. Josh was also a member of the Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity. On January 13th, 2011, and August 15th, 2012, respectively, Josh welcomed his two sons, who were the most important part of his life. Josh lived and worked in the Chicago area prior to joining the United States Army in May of 2004. From 2004 to 2012, Josh served on active duty, spending much of his time in the distinguished United States Army 75th Ranger Regiment, 3rd Battalion, where he had participated in multiple combat tours. He continued to serve as a member of the Wisconsin Army National Guard at the time of his death. Josh was contracted to Oshkosh Defense as an information technology security specialist. Josh had many hobbies and interests throughout his life. He was an avid snowboarder, and he loved shredding the gnar whenever and wherever he could find the fresh pow. He was a Go Ruck cadre and had many groupies, affectionately known as GRTs. He created a special Go Ruck annual event benefiting the Snowdrop Foundation. Josh loved trolling, gaming, nerding out, and especially hunting. In the fall, you could always find him hunting at the shack, the home of the worthless hunters. Josh was a Star Wars buff, and he had passed on that love to his boys. He also loved spending time at the Shire with his family. A true Wisconsin kid, he loved cheese curds, brats, and spotted cow beer. Josh was a member of the KMS-MC Midwest Marauders, and he enjoyed riding his Harley-Davidson with the club. Josh is preceded in his death by his grandfather, Lewis Haas, and a cousin, Justin Meadham. Josh is survived by his sons, Benjamin and Elijah, his parents, his grandparents, Brevard Hall and Jeanette Honey Hendricks Rivers, Grandma Dorothy Hanson Haas, Sister Jacqueline, her husband Zachary Westrick, brother Jordan and Leah Haas, nephews Graham, Griffin, Hudson, and Hendricks Westrick, special friend Kristen Tresh, and many aunts, uncles, and cousins. Josh will be remembered for his selflessness, his kindness, his strength, his tenacity, his humor, his sarcasm, and his wit. He was a mixture of badass and a teddy bear, and you were lucky if you got both. He had a heart for those who needed a friend. Josh Reed Haas, 42 years of age, passed away peacefully in his home April 4th, 2019, surrounded by his loving family and friends. So with that, color guard, new order of the day, post colors. Color guard, left base, present, arms. Order, arms, right face, stand at ease. I didn't personally know Josh, but Ein, who's with us today, very close friend, he's your cadre for I don't know how many years probably you've known him.
About 4 years and about 18 events.
Excellent. Yeah, just the fact that you were able to get to know him all these years, and I'm sure he's left a major impact on your life and helped you give direction and guided you in many ways that you probably didn't think possible. And him being attached to that regiment, and these guys are, that's pretty serious business. And the fact that he had multiple deployments, I'm sure he brought a lot of lessons to you guys that you wouldn't otherwise had. So it's awesome that you're able to be here with us today, and for us to be able to fly this flag when they unfurled this, you can almost feel that energy as it goes up the staff there. And for the next 30 days, we're going to have his memory alive with us here. His legacy lives on. So in 30 days, we'll present this to you as we have in the past, and looking forward to that. But share these stories, you know, the people that you talk to, share these stories of Josh's life and what he meant to you and all the things that he's impacted you greatly over all these years. So it's pretty awesome, but looking forward to hear some of these stories as well. But anything else you'd like to add? Well,
One quick thing, actually. With no attachment to childhood cancer, thank God, Josh created an event through GoRuck for Snowdrop Foundation. It benefited children fighting cancer, and when they grew up, it helped them go to college. Snowdrop Foundation also helped fund research to put an end to childhood cancer. Last year, after raising over $50,000 for Snowdrop Foundation with this one event, Josh did not participate. He looked at us and said, "Oh, I'm not feeling well." It was about the kids. At the end of the night, he told us all he had pancreatic cancer, stage 4, and may not live to see Christmas. He had one final Christmas and one final birthday with each of his boys, as well as his own. He kept it about the children, holding that secret close. Together, GRTs have raised over $120,000 for his kids, and we are keeping Snowdrop Event alive. This year, in honor of Josh Haas, and years going forward, we will continue to hold Snowdrop Foundation event through GoRuck in Appleton, Wisconsin. And so I will be there to see you, Josh, and I will present this flag to Kristen for you. Thank you.
well, thank you, Ein, for sharing that. I know it's difficult. But, as mentioned, his legacy does live on through his cancer benefit, all the things you guys are doing with GoRuck. It's just phenomenal, the amount of money raised and what good that's doing behind the scenes. So excellent tribute, and we're very thankful and honored to be part of this moving forward. So look forward to hearing those stories, as it said. But thank you so much for that heartfelt dedication, tribute. At this time, I'd like to open up to all attendees. Anyone have any comments or blessings to offer? I'd like to thank our Gold Star families being here today. Carla and Don, thank you for being here with us. Anything from our attendees? Anything whatsoever?
You can tell them the Caleb Erickson event will be on August 23rd and 24th in Waseca,
Yep.
the American Legion.
August 23rd, 24th,
Yep.
this next month. Caleb Erickson Memorial Day weekend. 5th annual?
6th.
6th. quick. So we're actually going to go run the test route today. We're going to ride the route, and we did it a couple weeks ago, and things are shaping up. Hopefully we can avoid the floodwaters around Waterville. Looking forward to being on the road here in a couple hours. Big event, a lot more coming forward on that too. So, anything else? Just want to make mention, we got Farmer Don here today. Amazing journey this last month to Ohio, and met with the Koss family. We've been talking about them since back February, March time frame, and we were able to go and meet with the family and meet Jeanette, the sister, and Dorothy, the sister-in-law, and present the flags that we've been flying here. Also the flag for Francis Ware. Met with Steve Gondel, a lot of friends and family. What an amazing journey that was, and something we'll never forget, I'm sure. So just incredible treatment. They really rolled out the red carpet for us, and no way we can even begin to repay for all the gratitude that they showed to us making that journey. So Pumpkin Mike was with us. What a treat to meet that guy. A lot of great stories. So Don, you want to add anything to that? Incredible journey.
Yeah, it was amazing meeting the Gold Star family, and I think it really hit home that not only their son and brother gave his life, but the effect it has on the whole family members, you know, friends and family. And when we were at the memorial and did the dedication and handing the family the flags, there were 50 or 60 family members there to I don't know if you call it celebrate, but memorialize John and Frank and their family members. And you just it hit home how much it really affects the family at home and how little they know what actually happened. So my friend and I and Kirk, we were able to fill in all the blanks that they had and answer the questions that they had, and had pictures. So it was one of the best decisions I've made to go through with this and do it. It was incredible.
Yeah, pretty amazing, and you could absolutely sense that. I think one of the moments that I recognized right away is when we were out at the cemetery at Johnny's gravestone, and just seeing you guys all together there and sharing that time. I was kind of in the back observing all that, and you could just it was, I wouldn't say a sense of relief, but just a lot of emotion come out of that, and just to have you guys be there with that family that day, and it was just awesome to bear witness to all that and see all that went down. But especially at the luncheon, I think when you walk through the timeline of when you got to know Johnny, when you first got in country, and kind of walk through, you know, all the events that had occurred up until the day of his death 7 months later. But that really helped them, I think, put some of that puzzle together that they hadn't known otherwise. So pretty important. And then the time shared after out at Steve's place, and it was pretty awesome that evening, and just what an event. So just could probably write a book just on that 4 or 5 days, you know, and probably write a book just on the pumpkin stories, actually. Just some good stuff come out of that. But.
And thank you, Kirk, for coming out there and helping us out, and helping me with pumpkin. That's more than a one-man job. That takes at least two to keep him under control.
Full-time position there.
Yeah.
No, it was a great honor, and I was very honored that you'd even asked for me to come along. But amazing journey. Never forget that. Looking forward, this just opened up a whole new dialogue with them, and looking forward to meeting them again in the future. Next time, maybe we ride our bikes, you know, and take some time. But incredible journey. We will remember all who are deployed, especially all those in harm's way. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, We ask that you provide peace and comfort to the families of those who have suffered the loss of a loved one on the front line of battle or as a result of their military action. We pray that you provide strength and direction for these families and provide solace for all those that are currently grieving. We pray that you provide safe passage for those who continue to fight for the survival of those around them. And we pray that you provide guidance for all of us to help the families of the fallen and to assist all veterans who are in need. We pray all of this in your name. Amen. Our next service, Frontline Honors, Sunday, August 18th at 1 p.m. For the month of July, this concludes the Frontline Honors ceremony. I'd like to thank all of you for attending. May God bless you, and may God bless the great United States of America. Color guard 10. Follow. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jan Peper, and I'm here at the American Legion Post 43. Joining me today is Kirk Mansfield and Don Langer. We have just concluded the July Frontline Honor Ceremony. Now, last month, Don and Kirk took a very memorable trip to Ohio, where they delivered 3 flags to veterans, Don's Vietnam brothers, to the families of these 3 heroes. So I'm wondering, Kirk, if you can describe to me a little bit about the ceremonies and some of the events that happened while you were in Ohio.
Yeah, so Don and I arrived in Pittsburgh, and then a good friend of his who was in the same platoon arrived in Pittsburgh within the hour of us getting there, and then we rented a car and we drove to Ohio, Youngstown. And then that first day we got checked in to our hotel that afternoon, and then at 5 p.m. we met Jeanette and her husband Jack, and then also Dorothy, who's the sister-in-law. And so we met them for dinner on that first evening. We got to the restaurant at 5 p.m. and we left at like 9:30, 10. And so most of that time was just spent in discussion, and what a great honor it was to finally meet this Gold Star family and to share this time with them. We've been talking about these guys for years, but we didn't have any idea that they even existed. So to come and finally meet them in person, just an absolute rush of emotion, and just heartfelt. What a great time to be with them, and just to be able to share this experience and to kind of go through the timeline of all the previous 49 years, and just to catch up on what they've been doing with their lives. And it's just amazing overall experience. But that first night was spent at the restaurant, and then the next morning they actually came. One of the things, Steve, who was a family friend of theirs from childhood, he was going to be joining us that next morning, but he was running a little late. And I can't remember if it was either Dorothy or Jeanette, I think had called and said, hey, Steve's going to be a little late. We're supposed to meet at, I think it was 8:30 or 9 that morning. But we just told him, come on up anyway. We'll wait for Steve here. It's no problem. So they thought that was great. So they came up, and that allowed Don and Mike to kind of go through their photographs that they had brought along. And then Dorothy and Jeanette also had photo albums, so they were able to share a lot of those photographs. So just having that a little bit amount of time before Steve arrived, to kind of go through that. It was just an awesome session to witness that. And, I was involved in a portion of that, but mainly I just kind of took a step back and just watched those guys just share that time, just the smiles and the laughter. And it just really, like the healing process was already, well begun at that point. But that just further emphasized the impact that it's had, like Don mentioned out here today, the impact that it has on this family these years later. And just to kind of see them go through that, the steps of there was grief, obviously, but just to kind of walk through that and just the healing processes overall is just so awesome to witness. And then, we took a tour of the town after Steve arrived there. They took us to places where they'd gone to school, homes that they'd grown up in, Mike's Garage, where the boys all wrenched on cars as teenagers. They took us down to the Youngstown Veterans Memorial. We got to see the names, all the guys that were from the Youngstown area that were killed in action in Vietnam, and they have a beautiful memorial that they've done down there. So we spent some time at the memorial. We went out to the graveside. We talked a little bit about that outside here today. But yeah, it's just to see them finally, get to pay their final respects to Johnny in that manner, and to have Steve and Mike and Don together, just three old Vietnam guys all hanging out together with their buddy Johnny, and they were talking to him as if he was just standing there with them. So that was awesome to see. And then we had pictures with, or time with, Jeanette and Dorothy were there as well, obviously. So to have all that, and then from the cemetery. We toured like a couple of the parks where they all hung out, ice skated as kids and whatnot, and then went to lunch. We had a wonderful lunch that afternoon, and then we ended up going back to our hotel for a couple hours of rest, and then they came and picked us up, and we went to a ball game that night. There's a single-A baseball team, the Scrappers, and so we went to the ball game, and they had, I think we were right behind home plate, about 6-7 rows up. You couldn't ask for better seats, and it was a beautiful evening. Perfect temperature to be out at a ball game, have a couple beers, and then the grand finale, even though the home team lost, it was just a wonderful experience, just sharing that time with them. And then at the grand finale for the evening, after the game was over, they turned out all the lights and they had a fireworks show. And it happened to be a Veterans Appreciation Night there, so they, they're doing some awesome things. But the fireworks were amazing, and one thing that Don and I were just thrilled, like two little kids in a candy store, is they gave us 3D glasses. And I've never worn 3D glasses to watch fireworks before, but I would highly recommend it. Never even thought about it before, but they kept handing out these glasses. We're like, what is this for? And well, we found out, and it just enhances everything. It's just the brilliance of the fireworks. So that, again, just that time, all part of that healing process, going through that with them. And then the following day, we met with Steve out at North Jackson, Ohio, which isn't too far out, maybe 10 miles. We met at the memorial. Where they were going to be holding the Sunday ceremony for our flag, dignified transfer of the flags that we'd been flying here. And so we kind of did a walkthrough at the memorial, what we were going to do there. And then he took us back to their American Legion post. And then they had a couple, 3-4 Legion Rider guys, and then 2 of them actually escorted us down to Central Ohio. And we went down to the Ohio State Veterans Memorial. And what an incredible fantastic place that is to witness, and just the detail on the benches, and the stones that the stonework they have. And then they have a dedicated Vietnam wall with, I'll probably get this wrong, but it's like 3,065 names or some such, all the Ohio KIA from Vietnam War. And so they have statue replicas of the Gold Star mothers and fathers. They have a POW/MIA section. They have a Gold Star section. They have a tank, a helicopter, just an incredible amount of military hardware on display. And then there was another section where they had this old barn that's on the grounds there and they got the side of the barn, and it's painted with a mural of the Twin Towers. And then there's an eagle like embedded on that too, or painted in there, and the eagle has a teardrop in its eye from, the 9/11 memorial. So that was pretty awesome to see, and just to go through all that. And then we actually met the director of the park that happened to be there that afternoon, so we got to speak with them and have a little sit down. And then one of the rooms that we'd walked into, they're not necessarily a gift center, but they have I don't know if it's a ballroom, I don't know the right word for it, but anyway, a meeting room. But above, like, I was reading through the pamphlet, and it said these dog tags, and I just happened to look up, and there was like all the KIA from Vietnam. There's 58,251 or whatever the number is for the Vietnam Wall, but all the dog tags are hanging from the ceiling in this room. And like, you didn't notice it when you first walked in, but I looked at this pamphlet and I just happened to glance up. And so just seeing these guys, like, just, these other Vietnam vets, and like, they looked up just in awe. I mean, it's just an incredible experience to see that. And then, later that night we got back to North Jackson, and then we parted ways, and then we had that evening for ourselves, and then we met with the family that next morning at the memorial. And then that's when we had a full ceremony. Like, they had the honor guard, color guard, similar to how we do that here. And so the way they had it set up and structured, Steve Gondel was kind of the MC of the event there, the officiant, and then he walked through basically welcomed everybody there. Like Don said, 50, 60 families in attendance, and then at this memorial. And then what we did is Jeanette and Dorothy and Don and Mike, they all sat next to each other, and then I was kind of off to the side there. And then what happened is their color guard came to these two guys who had Johnny and Frank's flags, and then they would take the flags individually and they'd bring them to the center of the plaza. They unfurled them, because we had folded them here. They unfurled them and then they folded them back up. And just, that was such an emotional moment, I think, for all of us, just to, because for me especially, like, I knew, like, we had flown those flags, as we obviously did, but to me that was the actual dignified transfer piece of this. So it was like, we had these flags, but now they are yours, you know, this is in their honor. And that transfer, like, just to bear witness to that, was just awesome to see their color guard just to take the time to fold it back up. And then they gave them back to these guys, and then individually they played taps, and then they did a reading for each of the boys too. And then they played taps to follow. 2 different times they did that, so they treated it as 2 separate flags, exactly how we had done it here. And then after they were done with their part, then I came to Don first. I saluted him, took Johnny's flag, and then I brought it over to Jeanette. And then, but that was difficult. I mean, to actually hand that flag to Jeanette, I mean, it's no different than, like, you know, Jack or Wally over the years on the honor guard, the funeral detail here. It had just as much meaning, if not more so, knowing that we're connected to these guys in that way now. So just so many thoughts and just things going in your head as you're transferring that flag. And I think Don had made mention, as I was handing the second flag to Dorothy for Frank, Don made mention, I didn't realize it at the time, but he said, I don't think I've ever seen you shaking that hard, you know. But it was so, you know, just that whole pent-up emotion and just carrying all that with you and just knowing what it means to these families and to these guys especially, to finally be able to acknowledge and honor that sacrifice after so many years. So it was very moving, very touching experience. And then, so after we transferred the flags, then we had one final piece that we needed to take care of, and Steve was kind of closing out that portion of the ceremony, and then we were going to go uptown for lunch. They had lunch catered in to one of the ballrooms up at the law enforcement center. But as he was doing the closing remarks, I kind of came up behind him, unbeknownst to him, but we still had Francis Ware's flag, and that was the 3rd flag that we had brought with us. And we had initially talked about transferring that in private at his house later that evening, but as the ceremony went on, I thought, you know, we're all here, we're gathered here for this ceremony, this is going to happen at this time. So I had, unbeknownst to Steve, I had actually one of Johnny's and Francis, it was a cousin, and he was actually holding on to that flag. What was pretty awesome about that in and of itself is when I went to get John and Frank's flags out of the car to bring them, you know, for the initial set to come in, I had that 3rd flag, and I seen this guy who was wearing a really bright orange shirt, and so I trusted that I'd be able to find him at the end of the program, which I did. But what was kind of funny is he actually had moved. He was over, like, what would have been to my right side to begin during the program, because I was kind of keeping an eye on him. But as I had gone to do the flag transfer to the ladies, at some point he had moved, and I kind of lost sight of him, and he had moved around behind some other people. And so I didn't catch him right away. But when I came up to Steve, and Steve was doing his closing remarks, I said, I just have one thing I'd like to add, Steve. And I said, this is completely off script, because I knew he had a pretty regimented checklist that he was going by. And I just called out for my guy, and I said, I've seen him back there with that orange shirt, and he had that flag. And he just happened to be standing behind, which would have been Jeanette's daughter was actually filming the ceremony. And so she was recording. But when I said front and center, he happened to be standing behind her, and so she thought it was directed at her. She told me later, she goes, I didn't know if I was doing something wrong or if I wasn't. I said, no, I was trying to get my flag man to come up. So he brought the flag up, him, and I think it was his dad was with him, and then I saluted them and then took Francis's flag, and I turned to Steve, and I said, Steve, I know the Francis Ware family could not be with us today. They had some other engagements they weren't able to attend, but I said, on behalf of Post 43, we'd like to present this flag to you. It has flown over our post. Our color guard gave it the proper tribute, and we folded it, and we're bringing this with us today. So, and then I presented that to him. So that was kind of closed out that ceremony, and then we went uptown for lunch, and then we had a beautiful lunch there that they had catered in, like I mentioned. And then at some point, well, they had a whole table display for Johnny and all of his memorabilia. So that was awesome to see, a lot of photographs and just like his ribbons. And he had been awarded the Bronze Star, which I was not aware of. I don't think any of us were at that point until that day. So we found out about that, and then we kind of, Don had gotten up, and Mike said a few words, and then Don got up, and he kind of went through the timeline at length, like from the first day when he met Johnny in country. And he can describe that, but it was basically they got to know each other because they were the two newest guys, and they just kind of gravitated towards each other because no one else was talking to them. So they got to be good friends right from the onset. Mike had already been there for a couple weeks, but they got to know him in the platoon and just, running a lot of missions together. So those guys got to be very close. And as Don has mentioned in the past, everything's to the extreme. Everything's so intensified, the relationships, when you're sharing that amount of time with each other, everything just becomes really, really close. So these guys are like brothers over there, and to have him go down, it just kind of changed. And like we talked to, like it changed the dynamic. You had the time that they were with Johnny, and then the time after John got killed. And so that was almost like two separate tours of duty. He can describe that better, but there was a lot of the discussion, like with John and then without John. So there's things that happened during that. But yeah, we shared that time together, and it was just a great experience to see. And there's a few questions that people had and whatnot, and Don was able to walk through that. And I don't know how he did it. I mean, there was times that he was, some of the things he was describing, it's so emotionally heartbreaking, but he kept his composure. Incredible. Just to be able to walk through all that and just to be able to keep his composure the way he did. There was times where I wasn't able to keep myself together, but he did awesome, and it was great to see the family's reaction, everybody coming up and thanking these guys. And everywhere we went, that was another thing, everywhere we went in Ohio, like every single place, every establishment, people come up and thank you. These guys are wearing the Vietnam hats, and thanks for your service, or hey, thank you for what you've done. And it just was great to see, and these guys deserve every bit of that and then some. But yeah, we spent that time, and then we went out to Steve's house. We had a big cookout that evening, and shared some downtime with the family, and just laughing, joking. Steve gave us a big tour of his welding shop, and getting to see where they're at in the country there, and meeting a lot of their friends and neighbors, and awesome experience overall. And then next morning we met for breakfast at near our hotel, and then off we went back to Pittsburgh, and we parted ways there. And I can't repeat exactly what Mike Pumpkin said to me. Pretty awesome. But got to know him pretty well over a few days, but just treated me like I was his long-lost son. That felt great being able to hang out with these guys. What a great honor it was to just spend time with these guys and have a couple beers each night after a hard day. And awesome experience overall. Beautiful. And then we got back to Minnesota, and here we are a couple weeks later. But beautiful, beautiful family. Can't say enough about treatment. And like I said, they gave us a red carpet treatment, and so full of gratitude. It's just so awesome. So that's it in a nutshell. That's a summary.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Don, I know that it was a dream of yours for years to see and to come face to face with the family and tell them a little bit more about John. Can you tell me what that was like for you?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say Kurt covered our activities pretty well, and I would like to go back. It was quite an emotional for everybody involved, and when the process first started, you're always a little apprehensive, because you're bringing up feelings from 50 years. And but when we met them at the restaurant, it felt like we knew them forever. And we got to talking, and I asked Jeanette, well, why, when you got this call after 50 years, why, when I talked to you, did you take it seriously? Because her husband was quite guarded, because I was surprised that they would get crank calls. People calling them and saying, well, I served with your brother Johnny, could you send us some information? Well, that just didn't work. But Jeanette said that I just knew too many details. And before the first meeting, a couple of months before, you're always a little apprehensive in how you're going to be received and who these people are. They don't know me, I don't know them. But after I first talked to Jeanette, which is Johnny's twin sister, she had a lot of questions, and Mike Milton and I were the only ones that could answer her questions. And between Mike Milton and myself, we brought pictures of Johnny, and I had my books there and could show exactly the area we worked in Vietnam and where it happened. And I thought that was that really helped everybody out. And then by the time we left, it seemed like everybody was satisfied. We were able to fill in a lot of the blank spaces. And for people that don't want to go through the emotion, it's easy to put off something like this. We put it off for 50 years. You talk about doing something, but then it's easy to put off. And to make that final step and commitment, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was incredible. And like I said, once I found out that I had the answers, I had to do something. Because I don't think enough credit is given to the Gold Star family, because there's family and friends that their loved one is gone forever. And like Mike and I, we got to live our lives. And I hope it inspires somebody else to take that extra step. I've heard people say, well, gee, I should do that, but I just can't take that step. But just remember, you got to live your life, and they have just memories of a young man that went off and came back in a box. And I thought that it was just like family. We just met these people, and it seemed like we had a lot in common, and everything just flowed. And the first meeting in the restaurant, 4.5 hours later, we finally broke up and went home. But it was really, I really liked to see the family, Steve, being able to go through, who was a childhood friend. It was really fun to see him relive the memories that him and Johnny had together, where they grew up and where they lived and went to school and that type of thing. And I think it really helped them. So it was a trip of a lifetime, and if anybody else gets a chance to do it, just do it, because there's a lot of people that would really appreciate it. And like I said, I'll never forget this experience, and I know Kirk has talked about it, and several days after we got home, we were calling people and telling them we just had to keep reliving the moments. And to see the number of people that showed up for the exchange of flags was just incredible. And the interest and questions that people had, what we did and what was life like in the jungle and that type of thing, and just the living conditions, and people were really curious to know, and I tried to explain to them and kind of give them a feel of what it was, exactly what it was like, that you don't hear. There's a lot in between the firefights and that type of thing, and just what daily living in the jungle was like. And a lot of times that was the hardest part, and what level that you had to go psychologically to be able to survive in that environment. And I can understand why people just can't put it behind them. You know, you have to block it off and get on with your life. And I've been fortunate to put that into memories. It's something that happened, but you have to live your life and be appreciative that you were the ones that made it through and survived. And I think you should appreciate it till the day you die.
Well, a very remarkable journey for both of you in so many ways.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I'll never forget it. And my friend from Virginia, Mike Milton, he'll never forget it. And I like sharing the story with other people. When I came down to the Legion, I don't know how many people came up to me and said, well, how was your trip out east? Well, tell me about it. And it's just amazing that the number of people that were interested in this story. And I'm more than happy to tell them about it because it was an emotional roller coaster, but it was all good.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your story with us and for taking that extra step. From the American Legion Post 43, with Kirk Mansfield and Don Langer, I'm Jan Peper for FCTV.